go for launch.
5.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Anything can happen in the next half hour.
4.
My friend, we cannot keep this a secret any longer.
This whole thing is insane.
3.
Quiet, please. I am analyzing.
Where's the kaboom?
2.
There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
1.
The man who put ghoul into goulash, Mr. Vincent Price.
Oh, hello. I don't know about you, but my definition of a hangover is the day after Christmas. As for Boxing Day, well, as far as I'm concerned, they can put me in one and bury it. But you know, I thought I would talk tonight about your Christmas leftovers. Now, by that, I don't mean those relations that are still staying with you now. I don't suggest that you eat them. Oh, I don't know. I have a fat little nephew who would look rather tempting with an apple in his mouth. No, I'm talking about all these remnants, these pathetic relics of our Yuletide bacchanalia. Yeah. Now, I had toyed with the idea of telling you what to do with the remains of your Christmas pudding. But as my father was a workhouse master, the memories were too painful. Oh, God, if only he'd taken out the holly.
Greetings, my fellow galactic travelers, and welcome back to Planet 8. This is your Mission Commander Larry speaking to you from our hidden base. Chief Engineer Bob is here by my side as always in the command center, and circling Planet 8 in our orbital spy satellite is Reconnaissance Officer Karen.
And on this episode of Planet 8, we have the honor of having friend of Planet 8, Lord Blood-Rah, with us for our Christmas with Vincent episode. That's right, we'll be talking about Vincent Leonard Price Jr. You know, what can you say about Vincent Price? He was a true Renaissance man, born in 1911, May 27th, 1911, in St. Louis, Missouri. He started his film career early on. 1938, he was in a comedy. Comedy's name was Service de Lou. And, he became a well-known character actor. He was in the 10 Commandments. I mean, come on. 10 Commandments. How many people can say they've been in that movie? He went on to do, famously, horror movies, House of Wax, The Last Man on Earth, which we talked about in some earlier episodes. One of my personal favorites, The Abominable Dr. Phibes, Theater of Blood. He worked with Roger Corman on the Edgar Allan Poe adaptations, House of Usher, The Pit and the Pendulum. I mean, heck, the man was even in several Batman episodes as Egghead. So straight away, we're going to open it up to our esteemed panel, our intrepid members of today's Planet 8 podcast, and discuss the film's career and spirit of Vincent Price. Who'd like to start off? Very good. Lord Blood-Rah, thank you.
Well, I was just the probably deepest personal connection. I don't think this is the first time I was aware of Vincent Price, but the deepest personal connection I have is he was in the film that scared me most when I was a child, which was The Tingler.
Yes.
Tingler petrified me when I was a kid. And, of course, he famously starred in it and famously was the first actor to ever have an acid trip on camera. in that movie. He plays a scientist experimenting with fear because he believes, it's a wild plot, he believes that there's a microscopic thing in people's spines that grows to the size of the human spine and crushes the human spine during times of extreme fear, and the only way to kill this thing is to scream, to relieve it, and then it shrinks back down to size. He manages to take one out, but in experimenting with fear, he takes an LSD trip. And I think that was pretty petrifying, because as a kid, I'm like, ooh, drugs bad. That's not
yeah, drugs bad.
And the scene in the theater, there's a scene where this creature is supposed to get loose in the theater, and they do an entire blackout and the audience screams. And as a kid, I was sure that the Tingler was going to get me that night. So that was probably the most powerful exposure I had to Vincent Price.
Well, that was William Castle.
William Castle.
My mother she actually went to see it in a theater.
Oh.
And, they had the hot plate set up on the seats, and there were kids jumping out of their chairs and just added to the whole experience. But
yeah. Oh, no, they weren't hot plates. They were vibrators. Hot plates would have been multiple lawsuits.
No, but a lot of people think that all the seats were wired.
Yeah.
No.
And that's not the case. It's like certain seats were wired, and you see somebody jump and you see someone else jump, and then you just, It's kind of like when you see a spider in the house, and for the next half hour, you're like itching different parts of your body. Oh, it feels like a spider's on me.
Well, that and William Castle would not pay for every single seat to be wired. I mean, come on. Yeah. The man was a showman, but he was frugal.
But it was, it's a great gimmick. I mean, Vincent Price,
yeah.
The Tingler's loose in the theater, and then people start jumping and screaming, and just the whole audience participation thing about everybody scream.
That's right.
Right. There are people who swear that film was in color. And as I recall, I haven't seen it for a while. Isn't it just like the last minute?
No, the fascinating thing about that is there's one scene where I think it's the woman's having the LSD trip. And she goes in the bathroom, she turns on the faucet, and red blood comes out of the faucet.
Okay.
Right.
And I was reading up the way they did that, which is amazing, is they shot it in color. But you don't have CG, and you can't colorize things back then.
Right.
So all the walls of the bathroom and the sink and everything were all shades of gray.
Wow.
Physically painted shades of gray.
Wow.
The woman had, a whiter gray dress or whiter gray clothes and pancake makeup to make her look gray. And then when they turn the faucet on, of course, the red water comes out, and that was the only thing that was actually color. But yeah, the whole thing was shot in color. It was just a black and white set, basically, a black and white actress, and red blood coming out of the faucet.
That's amazing. I wondered how they did that with the kind of technology available back then.
Yeah.
I wondered how they did that. Yeah, William Castle was this is a Vincent Price episode, but William Castle.
But I mean that was a big step up. I mean, I was, as of this recording today, I was watching Svengoolie last night, and he had How to Make a Monster.
Right.
And of course they just switch to the final scene, when they get to his house, to the makeup artist's house, then it's all in color.
Right.
Or like Teenage Frankenstein, where the Frankenstein monster gets electrocuted, it turns color.
Right.
Or what was the other one? Was Amazing Colossal Man, when he grabs the phone wires or the high tension wires, and it goes color while he's getting shocked. Mm-hmm. But this was just the concept, for someone to come up with, hey, this is a black and white movie, but we're going to shoot this one part in color, and just the red blood coming out of the faucet will be in color. It's like, and then figuring out how to do that, how to pull it off.
That's something that Spielberg borrowed for Schindler's List, right? The girl in the red dress.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But then again, by the time you get to Schindler's List, you could colorize things.
Right. Yeah. So I'm sure it was much easier for him to do than it was for.
It wasn't a quote unquote practical effect.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, that was the deepest personal connection I have is that. But then seeing him, on Batman as Egghead, where he's hilarious,
right?
All the talk shows that he appeared on when we were kids in the early 70s, and he was everywhere. He was ubiquitous. Hollywood Squares he appeared on.
Yeah, right. The
man was everywhere.
Muppets at one point.
Right?
Yeah, I think I'm sure my first exposure to Vincent Price had to be Batman. had to be Egghead. Just because at the time, I'm an old guy. So I was like, 6, 7 years old when Batman was on, and I used to watch it religiously. So, I'm sure at 6 or 7, my first exposure to Vincent Price was probably as Egghead. And here, one of his episodes, of course, features the Batgirl saber dance. But really, my first, I think I've told this story on the podcast before, but the very first horror sci-fi film I ever saw that got me into this and pushed me down the road to where we are now was The Fly. Mm-hmm. And so, obviously I have Vincent Price to thank for all this stuff, the crazy stuff we do. But, The Fly was definitely the first Vincent Price film I saw. And we did an episode on The Fly, but, it's just, a great film and made a big impact on me when I saw it. And, of course, Vincent Price was a big part of that.
Mm-hmm. It's a kind of an uncharacteristic role for him, though, in the horror movie genre. He's usually the baddie, and in that he was, the good guy.
Yeah. It was a non-horror role in a horror film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in that movie. And there are people today who will say, oh, yeah, Vincent Price, he was the Fly. No, he was not the Fly. He was in it.
But David Hedison, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. He was the Fly.
Right.
But
Vincent Price has had so many different. It's kind of the comeback kid, wasn't he? He had so many different facets to his career where he'd kind of run hot and cold. Of course, he did the 2 Roger Corman films, which really kind of put him front and center in horror. That started actually with House of Wax. Really, I mean, his first horror role was Return of the Invisible Man.
Yeah, right.
Return of the Invisible Man. And that was his first full horror role. But then, William Castle kind of cemented that with House on Haunted Hill and the Tingler. Then the Poe films with Roger Corman. Yeah. And from there on, he was just, the master of how did William Castle put it? Not William Castle, Roger Corman, the master of... Not all things Poe. He came up with a ridiculous word for it. Edgar Allan Poelian or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the funnest thing for me watching all these Vincent Price movies was just seeing the AIP logo pop up at the beginning of almost all of them.
For me, it's funny because I was trying to think: is there a distinct moment or incident that I can recall? And there really isn't. I think like a lot of these, characters or movies or genres, I was introduced to Price probably by my mom. My mom did like to watch, old horror films like the Universal monsters. That's how I came to those. But she also just liked really old movies in general. And I remember her talking about Dragonwyck, and Vincent Price was in that. So I probably, saw him in that at some point as I hung out with her. But I know, like you were talking about, Frank, he was in a lot of talk shows. And I do remember him doing the cooking, segments on some of those shows, and remember connecting him with cookbooks and being, sort of this very kind of elegant gentleman who would come on the shows and talk about cooking and art and all those things. But then also connecting him with like Dr. Phibes. That was one of my mom's favorite movies because she kind of liked the whole revenge angle, which, you read into that, which is all about
she could relate to that?
My mom could relate to it. But, it was like, he's not really that scary guy. He's this, very, erudite gentleman who knows about art and literature and cooking, but then he plays these scary men, and then you'd buy like some of these horror magazines and he'd be in, all the pictures and stuff and articles. And so it was like, he has all these different talents. He's an actor and he's an art expert, and it was like, wow, he's really, you know, like Larry said, a Renaissance man. And he was kind of the first person I think I could connect that idea with, that, you know, he's just got his fingers in so many different things. He's multi-talented, you know.
And when I started getting into old-time radio shows, and specifically old-time radio horror, he has he had a BBC series called The Price of Fear, which was really unique because he hosted it, but he also starred in all the episodes, and these were supposed to be like adventures that he had while making films, these like paranormal or supernatural events that would happen during his life. And it's a really great show. I posted some episodes of it on my podcast and earlier. It's great stuff. And, you know, speaking of radio, he was the Saint on radio.
He was the first
years.
Simon Templar.
Simon Templar, yeah.
Well, he had an incredible voice, so that's no surprise.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you think
a whole other career as a recording artist, with the Horn Book for Witches and his other story LPs. Yeah.
Well, Larry would probably know more about this, but didn't he record like the opening to one of the haunted houses for Disneyland, one of the Disneyland parks?
Yeah, it's Disneyland, the Paris. It's the
Phantom Manor.
Manor. He's had, you know, like we were saying, just a career that he was in a little bit of everything. I'm reading here, Vincent Price recorded a number of audio cooking tutorials titled International Cooking Course. And these were, the titles were Bounty of Paradise, Classical Spanish Cuisine, Cuisina Italiana, Delights from the Sultan's Pantry, Dinner at the Casbah. I mean, who wouldn't want to listen to these, you know, tutorials?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, in that man's voice, definitely.
You know, this week on Dinah Shore, Vincent Price sharing with you culinary delights from, you know, the Orient. Okay.
And most of his recipes have to do with eggs, right?
Right, yes.
I have an excellent recipe for you today.
You know, Bob, I was thinking, I want to say Egghead was my first introduction. If not Egghead, because my mother as well just loves... Yeah, I was talking to her yesterday. Hey, Mom, what are you doing? Oh, I'm getting ready to watch Sven Gulli on TV. And I'm, oh, okay, Saturday nights. That's what Mom does. You know, son, how's your friend Lord Blood-Rah? Let him know I enjoyed his latest. Yeah.
Really? Oh, tell her. Thank you very much.
So if it wasn't Egghead, it was Last Man on Earth, because she loved. I love it too. I mean, that's one of my favorite films of his, and probably in my top 50. I won't do my Morgan impersonation, but that, you know, Morgan.
Oh, yeah. Easily the best adaptation of that novel.
Yeah.
Legend. Easily the best. You know, it'll make a man's fun.
Right.
It strays a lot from the book, though.
Yeah.
It does, but it is fun. And you look at the films, there were a lot of films that were done in Italy, in England at that time by, you know, whether it was AIP or whomever. And Vincent Price was in a lot of those films where everyone else was speaking a different language. And he's just like, well, you know, yes, we must get down to the basement soon.
It is strange because you can tell in that film everyone is dubbed, including Vincent, but Vincent dubs himself.
He dubs himself. I know. It's like, okay.
Oh, speaking of that, the Dr. Goldfoot movies.
Oh.
Now there were two of those, Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine,
which I just watched the other night.
Really? All right. Yeah. And Dr. Goldfoot and the Girl Bombs.
Igor, you idiot!
Right. Now, Dr. Goldfoot and the Girl Bombs, if I'm not mistaken, was Mario Bava?
Right.
I think directed that.
That I'm not sure of.
I am not sure. People are probably screaming at their listening devices saying, "No, you idiot, it wasn't." But anyway, whoever directed it did not want to do it. So they shot it, and the director basically threw the script out. Okay, we'll get through this thing. So a lot of the dialogue was improvised.
Oh, wow.
So they went through the film, shot the film. The film, supposedly, even according to Vincent Price, was a disaster. About a month after shooting, everybody in the cast got a call. We lost the sound reels. We have to ADR the whole thing. But they threw away the script. So they essentially had to try to remember what they said on the day and match it with the footage. What a nightmare! I mean, that film is atrocious, but it's fun.
What's the name of the movie again, Lord?
Dr. Goldfoot and the Girl Bombs.
And the Girl Bombs. I need to look that one up.
See, I watched Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine, but I did not get to Girl Bombs, though. But now I'm going to have to watch it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, just for the ridiculousness of the experience. Sure. Yeah.
Oh God.
Absolutely. That is hilarious.
Yeah. It was 1966. It was Dr. Goldfoot and the Girl Bombs.
Man. All right.
You know, and
that's on the list.
Mario Bava.
Yeah. Oh, okay. There you go.
He sort of reminds me of Michael Caine. It's sort of like, you want me to make a movie? Sure. What's it about? I don't care. I'll just make it.
Yeah. And that's wonderfully endearing about him, because whatever he was doing, he always, you got the feeling he was having the most fun on the set.
Yeah.
That he's no matter what it was, he's having a great time doing what he's doing.
Well, I mean, he had a whole story about basically one of his favorite roles was Egghead. Mm-hmm. And he's got there's a story somewhere in an interview where he's talking about playing Egghead, and he actually started an egg fight on the set. Like, they weren't rolling or whatever, but they had all these eggs, and they have an egg fight in one of the episodes, but yeah, they had all these eggs, and he just started throwing them, and they all joined in. It was almost like, like a Three Stooges short.
As an extreme aside, I was watching this short vignette. It was a Saturday Night Live where Superman had died, and it was Superman's funeral. And everyone would ask once in a while, "Where's Clark? He's so insensitive not to be. Isn't Clark and Superman best friends?" And they had Batman giving the eulogy, and the Penguin's out there, and it's a Burgess Meredith version of the Penguin. And Batman's pouring his heart out about Superman, and the Penguin's wah, wah, wah. And Batman's like, "You insensitive asshole. Why would you be laughing at a time like this?" He says, "It's the way I cry, too." Sorry.
Speaking of SNL,
yeah.
Bill Hader did 2 or 3 sketches that were Vincent Price holiday specials, where he impersonates Vincent Price and has these celebrities on. It's supposed to be, standard old variety holiday special. They're on YouTube. Look them up. They're hilarious. And Bill Hader, of course, does a magnificent Vincent Price because he's an amazing talent. Yeah.
Yeah, it's... those are good.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, now you have ideas for sound bites, Chief.
I was going to say, this is our Vincent Price holiday special anyway, so...
There you go.
We'll get some clips in somewhere.
I have to say, one of the more fun experiences I had with Vincent Price was they re-released House of Wax in 3D, I think in the late 80s. And I might have seen it, I want to say it might have been the Grand Lake Theater. Man, that was fun, seeing that in 3D. And of course, that beautiful Technicolor. That was just like a highlight. And, it's a great film. It's a really excellent film of his. But sitting there with the 3D glasses on and watching it, that was a hoot.
Yeah, I was watching House of Wax last week, and not in 3D, but I do have the 3D Blu-ray disc, but my 3D TV's in the back bedroom for video games these days, so I did watch the movie, though, and I hadn't seen it in a long time, and for some reason, I remembered it being like black and white. Probably because it's been so long, I had a black and white TV at the time, but yeah, no, it looked amazing in color, and Vincent Price is great in the movie. And
oh yeah.
So yeah, I was very impressed with it. I didn't remember how good it was until I rewatched it.
One of the strangest things I watched for this episode was an episode of Here's Lucy, which was the show Lucy had after I Love Lucy. And so in the episode, Lucy acquires this painting accidentally at an auction, and she spends $50 on it, which was a lot of money for her. And I forgot, it was incredibly sexist, I have to say. The episode was very sexist. She had to beg Gail Gordon, who was her boss at the real estate place where she worked, for the money to cover her buying this thing. And then somebody on the show says, "Oh, well, remember you talked to Vincent Price's wife the other day about this such and such. And Vincent Price is such an art expert. Maybe he can tell you," because it was an unsigned painting, "maybe it's a painting by a great artist. You should have him look at it." So, of course, she's like, "Oh, yeah." So she calls up Vincent Price's wife and says, "Well, would your husband look at this painting for me? And, sure, bring it over Tuesday," or whatever. So then they cut to Vincent Price, and he's in his home, and his producer of this movie has set up a room in Vincent Price's home to look just like a mad scientist's laboratory, because they just want to film in his house for some reason.
Right.
So it'll be convenient for Vincent Price, right? So in the meantime, Lucy's kids are like, "Oh, we're not happy about you going to see Vincent Price. He's kind of cuckoo." And she's like, "No, he's just an actor. Those are just roles he plays." And so, of course, she goes over to see him. He thinks she's an actress coming to rehearse with him, and he starts going into his role saying, "I'm going to take your brain out of your body," and she flips out. And anyway, it was pretty hilarious, actually. Mayhem ensued, and Lucy running around the lab screaming, and Vincent Price chasing her. Eventually he does evaluate the painting, and it's completely worthless, and he somehow comes out ahead with $250. So it was pretty funny. But again, it was like that, snapshot of him with everybody thinks of him as both this horror actor, but also this art connoisseur. It was pretty cute stuff.
Who excelled at comedy. He did wonderful comedy. For Chiller Diller Theater, about a month ago, we did Theater of Blood. And as a short before the thing, I put together some clips of Vincent Price doing various things. And there's a clip from him on the Dean Martin show playing a vampire. And he's had to be like Halloween episodes. And he's basically bites Dean Martin on the neck and says, "Whatever that isn't kosher." And him and Boris Karloff on the Red Skelton show.
Yeah, I saw
playing
that.
Father and son mad scientists putting together a monster. And yeah, he excelled at that kind of thing. No matter what he did, it seemed to have a great time doing it.
Well, there's also like a clip of him with Kermit the Frog, which
oh yes,
I think was like Sesame Street or something. But yeah,
and there was a Canadian children's show, I believe in the 70s, might have been the 80s, I'm not sure, called The Hilarious House of Frightenstein, that Vincent Price was on. He did the intro and the exit, but then throughout he did these poems, introducing the characters as they were to come on and do their various skits. And the whole thing's on YouTube, so you can look up the Hilarious House of Frightenstein, entire episodes and his individual bits. And they're wonderful. And you can see, again, it's like they put him on a set, gave him a box of costumes and a box of props. Here's the script, Vincent, go. And that he was just playing and, putting on the robes and the crowns and the hats and grabbing a prop and doing the thing. That he was just playing. You could tell that the man was just playing and having a wonderful time. And that's infectious. When you watch a performer just play, that feeling, that good time is infectious.
That program, my friend Jeff always talks about it. He was like, grew up watching that, and he would tell me about Vincent Price's part in it. So I've checked out a couple of those videos. It is fun.
They're very fun. Yeah.
One of my favorite episodes of the Night Gallery was Vincent Price as a Satanist and Bill Bixby. He was trying to possess Bill Bixby or convert Bill Bixby. And it really scared the crap out of me. I mean, this was not, the lovable Uncle Vincent that we've seen in, Dinah Shore and Johnny Carson. He was scary.
The Return of the Sorcerer.
Yes.
I think is what it's called. Yeah, one of the scariest episodes. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Just very nightmarish.
Very good. And also the Class of 1999, where he plays a college professor doing oral exams.
Yes,
and the big kind of twist at the end. Yes, yeah.
Can't say enough good things about the Night Gallery. Just as an aside, I'll put that out there.
I love it. There are some classic episodes. Some episodes didn't age very well, but I always loved that show.
Every series out there, I think, has a Spock's Brain episode or two. So, hey, let's not forget Vincent Price as the Heavy in the Brady Bunch episode when they went to.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
It's like we were talking about all the different ways people come to Vincent Price instead of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Right. It's like how many different ways can you get to Vincent Price? There's like a zillion different ways to Vincent.
That's the
Price.
game. Yeah, that's right. That's the game. He was in every. Yeah.
Saying before we started recording, my wife, as I was watching all these Vincent Price movies and TV shows, she would occasionally look up and be like, "Hey, that's the voice in Michael Jackson's Thriller," and I'm like, "Yep, that's right. That's Vincent Price." She'd look up, that's Edward Scissorhands' father. I'm like, yes, it is. Why is he such a mean man killing these people in this movie? Well, he's an actor, dear, and
it's funny because I think about people who have second acts or third acts, like Shatner.
Yeah,
I'll think about he did Star Trek and then he was in kind of a down period. You read about him living in his camper, doing dinner theater and stuff. But then he kind of comes back. He has the Star Trek movies. He has Boston Legal and all that, so he had some ups and downs. But Price seems to have just sort of kept transitioning throughout. Yeah. He didn't seem to have any big downs as far as I can tell. He just his career just kind of went here, there, and everywhere, And if he wasn't making a horror film, then he was, on the Brady Bunch, or he was on a cooking show, or, he was just doing a little bit of everything throughout his career. And his, maybe you knew him because you heard the Thriller. You saw the Thriller video, or maybe you knew him because you saw him on the Brady Bunch, or maybe because you watched a Roger Corman film. He was kind of always present, but in different, different areas, and maybe somebody got into him from one thing. I think, Frank, you brought up the Alice Cooper album, and maybe that way you'd go watch a movie, right? So,
that's right, yeah. And he was in the movie Welcome to My Nightmare with Alice Cooper as the curator of the museum. Yeah.
There you go.
I think it was because he was so open to everything. Because watching Vincent Price's films, you wouldn't think he would be on a rock album with Alice Cooper. You wouldn't think that. You would think he would, as an actor, he would think, no, that would be beneath me. No, he was open to doing anything that he thought would be fun.
Well, he was a working actor, and I think you hit the nail on the head. What was going to be fun and interesting? What was going to be challenging? Maybe, it paid good and it wasn't going to be that challenging, right. In researching, I didn't get to watch all these TV shows, but apparently he was in an episode of The Bionic Woman, Columbo, Love American Style, Get Smart, Man from U.N.C.L.E., F Troop. I don't remember seeing him in F Troop. But
I do.
Okay, well.
I do. He played a vampire. He played.
Oh my God!
I want to say Count Schwarza. Something like that. Count Schwarza. It was something like that. I can't remember exactly, but I think it was Count Schwarza.
Count Belchula.
Yeah, right. But yeah, he plays a vampire. Of all things in F Troop, he plays a vampire that moves into
hilarious.
Town. Yeah.
And he was in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Yes.
His voice was, yeah.
Voice.
And that's right, Bob. His voice was as the Invisible Man at the end of the movie. So I think he was in a Disney cartoon, too. Hold on a minute.
The Great Mouse Detective, wasn't it?
Well, there was that CG short, Vincent, that he was in.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
It's like 6 minutes long or something. But I think really Vincent Price is he embraced his persona. So he never really said, I don't want to do this because I don't want to get typecast.
Right.
Or I want a different role or this or that. He just opened up his arms and took whatever came in.
That's right.
And he did well with it, too. I mean, I was watching The Abominable Dr. Phibes Returns last night, and he just ate up every scene. He's sitting there having brunch or dinner with Volnavia and taking, and he's not flinching or smiling. He takes the spoon and pours it in the side of his neck. It's like, I'm Dr. Phibes. That's how I eat. It's just fascinating to me.
Yeah. And in both of those films, think about how hard that is as an actor, because he's supposed to be a stone-faced mute that is speaking through a cord coming out of his neck. So he isn't actually doing the lines as he's on camera. That's ADR'd later. So everything had to come through just his eyes and the way he was like moving his jaw and without opening his mouth and without speaking.
There was such inflection with the jaw and the bottom of his chin, when he's like commenting. And look, it's schlock, but at one point he didn't have a speaker, so Volnavia is holding this huge trombone, and he plugs into that for the echo so his voice could emulate. And I'm like, again, he's not flinching, he's going with it. It's like, okay, let's do this.
And at one point I forgot, it might have been the same scene. He's eating, and he starts kind of coughing, and he reaches into the hole and pulls out a fishbone from the hole in his...
Pulls out a fishbone, that's right.
Right, yeah.
We had the good fortune, Karen and I, I'm not sure if you and Bob were there, Lord Blood-Rah, at one of the Monsterpaloozas, where his daughter wrote a book, and she was talking about, life with her father. And, it was Vincent Price, A Daughter's Biography. Mm-hmm. And she told such great stories, about her father, Offset, the family man, loving to play Trivial Pursuit. As a matter of fact, when he was getting ready to pass away, the family came around, his children, and sat on the bed, and he couldn't really talk too well, and they were playing family or Trivial Pursuit. God, I can't think of what the question was. Something like testicular fortitude or something like that.
It had to do with orchids.
Yes.
What is the root? What is the root meaning of the word orchid or something like that? Yeah. Right.
He jumps up out of bed and he says, "Balls, balls."
He's back down. Yeah. She's wonderful. Victoria Price is absolutely wonderful. She was a guest up at Sinister Creatures Con, and I was there, and I had a table, and I could see her coming down the aisle. And I have a Vincent Price collection. It's 3 episodes of 3 films that I hosted with Vincent Price, and I was selling the DVD. And I saw her coming, and I thought, oh, I wonder if this is going to be a problem, because I know that a lot of family members of stars are rather protective of. It's like she might, even though these films that I hosted are public domain, she might think, oh, well, who's this guy profiting off of my father? Yeah. And she came to the table and we talked a little bit, and I just thought, well, I'm just going to, say, so by the way, I have this collection of, films of your father. And she's looked at it, she's, oh, that's wonderful. She looked at the DVD and turned it over, looked at it, she said, well, that's wonderful. Thank you for promoting my father's memory.
There you go.
And I thought, oh, that's wonderful. And so, of course, I gave her the please stay.
Yeah.
Obviously, Bela Lugosi's son hadn't got to her yet.
Right. Right. Yes. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Be nice, Bob. Be nice.
Hey, I'm just saying. One thing about Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine that I didn't realize going into it was that one of the stars is Susan Hart.
Oh, yeah.
I just couldn't get that out of my head. I couldn't separate her from the evil entity that she is now. And, so it was hard to just take her as a character in the movie. It was just like she'd come on and it'd just be like, oh man,
old Mrs. Huffines. Yeah, right.
God, was I reading something or was I watching an interview and they were like, they hired Vincent Price for the role, but they wanted Bela Lugosi, and they gave up on Bela Lugosi when they realized Bela had passed away 2 years ago. And so I'm trying to think of where I came across that information. But anyway, I thought it was interesting.
Well, there's something similar to that with the film that Sven just did, How to Make a Monster.
Yeah, Arkoff wanted Lugosi.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, well, yeah, he's dead.
To play the makeup person. Yeah, he had passed away like 2 years earlier.
Right.
That is too funny. I kind of want to go out and get one of his cookbooks now.
I would love to get that treasury of great recipes, or if I got what the classic one that he did. Yeah, I'd love to get that.
But it's kind of funny when you see some of these recipes from like the 50s and 60s, and there's some really odd combinations of things that like Jell-O and Spam, and it's sort of there's just stuff that we don't really eat nowadays that's like
bananas and ham.
I was just like, what the hell, people?
Well, it's kind of like when you go into a fancy restaurant and you look at what's in a certain dish, and it'd be like you're reading this list and it's like, oh, this sounds really good, and then it's always like the final ingredient. You're like, what the hell? The final ingredient always ruins the whole dish.
Oh, shallots, honey, black pepper, lark's vomit. What? Lark's vomit.
One of the things that people aren't really aware of is Vincent Price studied history at Yale. And, he and his wife were art lovers, and they actually donated pieces of art and money to establish the Vincent Price Art Museum at East Los Angeles College. And that's out in Monterey Park, California. I've never visited, but it's going to be on my list of places to check out. The collection, it's over 9,000 pieces and estimated to be in excess of value of $5 million.
He was also, if I'm not mistaken, the art buyer for the Sears home art program.
I believe,
right? I believe he procured the art that was reproduced and sold in Sears under the Vincent Price collection.
Yeah,
I think you're right. Yes.
Yeah.
So I mean, that just adds to his renaissance. What an interesting. I would have loved to have sat there, even for just like an hour, 15 minutes, and talk about the life that he lived and the career that he had, just fascinating.
And a far-ranging conversation, too, not just his films, but on everything, art, food, history, just everything. It was, really, really astounding man. Yeah.
Maybe like, Mr. Price, how did you go from Abominable Dr. Phibes to an episode of Scooby-Doo and the 13 Ghouls? Well, that's a fascinating story.
Right, yeah, exactly, yeah. There's a story that I love. It's when Vincent Price was on the set of the Witchfinder General, which was released here as The Conqueror Worm. And it's the one film of Vincent Price's that I don't care for his performance in, because it's so mean. And it has none of that even so slight wink to the audience. I mean, in this, he is absolutely just cold evil. And Michael Reeves was the director of the film, and purportedly they didn't get along because he kept telling Vincent, pull it back, less, pull it back. And supposedly at one point, Vincent Price said, "Young man, I have appeared in over 80 motion pictures. What have you done?" To which Michael Reeves said, "I've made 2 good ones."
Oh.
And this isn't one of them.
And this isn't one of them. Yeah, right. Well, no, it's a great film. Don't get me wrong. Witchfinder General is a great horror film, but I would put it close to last as far as Vincent Price performances, even though he's great in the film. I mean, there's a certain when you think of Vincent Price, you think of that, frankly, slightly over the top, stylized performance that he just does so well.
Right.
That is just the hallmark of it. A charm. That's yes, that's a great word for it. It has that charm about him that is lacking in this film, but then again, it is the performance that works within the movie. So,
because the thing is, you kind of want to like him. You want to be scared by him, but not so scared that you really think, Jesus, this guy's really going to kill me.
Yeah. That really comes across in Mask of the Red Death for me, which I think is one of his best performances, and an underrated film, I think, period, because that film, horror film, obviously based on Edgar Allan Poe's Mask of the Red Death, takes a lot of liberties because it has to, pad it out to an entire film.
Yeah.
But it is the most ambiguous film because it doesn't say, okay, here is good, here is evil. It's Vincent Price's character, Prince Prospero, is essentially a satanic evangelist. And he's trying to turn this young girl from the village towards the worship of Satan. And when he's talking to her about it, he makes some good points that they don't even try to knock down in the movie. So that towards the end of the film, as she leaves, she's totally bewildered. She doesn't know which way to go with it. She's like, I don't know. And she kind of leaves, and then the film kind of carries on, and in the end is what the end is. But it has this wonderful look at, what is good, what is evil. Mm-hmm. And towards the end of the film, the message is it doesn't matter, it is what it is. And people will turn these things into forms of worship, but that's not what it's about. Brilliant film, and his performance as Prince Prospero is fantastic.
Well, I thought another film that had great performances all the way around was The Raven.
Oh, yeah.
You got Vincent Price, and you got Peter Lorre, and you got Boris Karloff, and it's a comedy, but yeah, I mean, all three actors just chew up the scenery in every scene they're in.
Oh yeah, and what I've heard is that film would probably have fallen apart without Vincent Price in it, because Boris Karloff and Peter Lorre didn't quite get along on set. Because Boris Karloff, strictly trained actor, you go by the script, you memorize the script, you go with it. Whereas Peter Lorre, the script was a suggestion. And he was just ad-libbing all over the place. And Vincent Price was right down the middle because he could handle both. He knew the script, but with Peter Lorre, if Peter Lorre ad-libs a line at him, he can come right back at him with an ad-lib line or top him or play with him. So he was kind of the glue that both that film and Comedy of Terrors.
Comedy of Terrors, yeah.
All three of them in that film, too. And he kind of brought both actors together with the way he played with both of them.
Well, I know, in The Raven, most of the scenes are Vincent Price and Peter Lorre.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not until towards the end where Boris Karloff kind of comes in and the three of them are interacting.
Mm-hmm. And they're hilarious together.
Yeah. Oh,
they are hilarious. Oh, it's escaping me. What is the film? It's an anthology film where Peter Lorre plays the drunk, the wino, and Vincent Price is a wine connoisseur. Oh, come on! It's one of the Roger Corman films. And it's an anthology. It's not. It might be Tales of Terror.
I was just thinking.
I think it's Tales of Terror.
Yeah.
They're amazing comedic performance between. As I say, Peter Lorre is a total drunk wino, that leaves the house and comes on to this wine tasters convention. And he just kind of stumbles in and challenges Vincent Price, who is this total foppish, well-known wine expert, to a tasting contest. And it's just an incredible scene, amazing scene where, Laurie is just drunk out of his mind and Vincent Price trying to be so proper. But playing that for laughs as well. It's a great scene. Yeah, Tales of Terror. It's got to be Tales of Terror, I believe.
I think it is.
To go back and see that.
Yeah.
One of the things, too, in researching this, I never realized, I know that Bobby Boris Pickett, he did the Monster Mash, but that Vincent Price recorded a cover. 45. I never, so I'm going to be on the lookout for that so I can hear that cover of the Monster Mash.
Yeah, he did it, but I don't think it ever really went anywhere. It was actually released as a single, but it kind of bombed at the time.
I never heard about that. Yeah, so I'm going to check that out.
It's not great. I mean, although my favorite version of the Monster Mash was done by the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band.
Really?
In Britain, they did it on a show called "Do Not Adjust Your Set," I believe, a British show, and there's a video out of it that they did on the show. It's great. It's my favorite version of it. With all due respect to Bobby,
I know there's a live version by the Beach Boys as well.
Really?
Oh,
yeah.
Now that I'd not seen. Okay,
that is cool.
There's probably a version somewhere in Peter Jackson's 8 Hours of Get Back. There's everything else.
I watched every minute of the 8 hours. I can tell you it's not in there, but
yeah, and everything else. Yeah.
One of the things that I wish we could have seen was a third Dr. Phibes film, and I know there was talk of doing it, and I think there was actually a paperback that came out. The title eludes me, but that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah, I had heard there were a couple of ideas for a third one. I believe it was either going to be called, well, depending on the script, one was supposed to be, I think, the 12 Nights of Dr. Phibes, where the murders were based on the 12 Days of Christmas.
Oh, that would have fit into this episode perfectly.
Yeah, it would have, wouldn't it? Yeah, exactly. And then supposedly, because the Count Yorga movies are popular, the vampire films, there was going to be a Dr. Phibes meets Count Yorga film. Something that was kind of kicked around for a while. None of these films ever came to pass, unfortunately. But the 12 Nights of Dr. Phibes would have been, yeah, I'm on board.
Yeah.
That would have been great.
That would have been cool. Yeah, he had a good life. He had a long life. He did, he wasn't afraid. I'll give him that. Some of the things that he did were very successful. Some were not. Karen had talked about Shatner earlier, and there's this song that Shatner has on his Has Been album. And God, what's the name of that song? And he's, basically
it hasn't happened yet.
Hasn't happened yet, yeah. And, you get some accolades in your career, you get some recognition, and then most of the time it's like you're struggling to get work. So whether it was, the Lucy Show, Dr. Phibes, or Dinah Shore, Vincent was out there, and it's a testament all these years. He passed away in October of 93. And he is a Hollywood icon. I mean, he's up there with the greats. And it's a lot of fun talking about him today. I'm sure we could go on more, talking about him more. But we're at that point in the show. Before we get into the censor sweep, I saw read on Twitter Anne Price had passed away. So rest in peace,
Anne Rice.
Anne Rice. I thought you said
Anne Price. I was like, who's Anne Price?
No, sorry, Rice without the P. And famously, the author of the Vampire Lestat books, Interview with the Vampire, and so forth. So anyway, our thoughts and prayers are with her family.
And we also lost Michael Nesmith, who,
and Michael Nesmith.
In relation to this show, he did Repo Man. And what was the other one? Time Cop?
That's right. He was in Time Cop.
He produced Repo Man.
I did not know that. Oh, wow.
Yeah. He was, yeah.
So they say it comes in threes, so sometime between our recording this and the episode coming out, somebody is marked.
I just hope it's none of us.
Nobody speculate.
Yeah.
You'll feel horrible if you're right.
Yeah, nobody speculate. But on to chippier, happier things. We're going to play a promo for Lord Blood-Rah, and then Lord Blood-Rah himself will share some of his upcoming appearances and things he has in the works. So take it away, Chief. Play that promo for us, and then Lord Blood-Rah, you have the censor sweep.
Please leave your eyes at the door. You will not need them.
Lord Blood-Rah's nerve-wracking auditorium presents the best of old-time radio, horror, and science fiction. Tales of terror and the uncanny that unfold on the stage of your imagination. Come experience the magic of old-time radio horror. Lord Blood-Rah's nerve-wracking auditorium is available on Spotify, Apple, Google, and other podcast providers. Lord Blood-Rah's nerve-wracking auditorium, when you seek the darkness.
Yes, my lords and ladies, as you heard, please leave your eyes at the door. You will not need them. I've begun a podcast called Lord Blood-Rah's Nerve-Wracking Auditorium, in which I host old-time radio horror and science fiction episodes of classic series like Lights Out, Suspense, Inner Sanctum Mysteries. And these are really theater of the imagination. These episodes give you everything you need to build terrifying stories within your own head on the stage of your imagination. And it's available everywhere podcasts are available: Stitcher, Apple, Google, Spotify. To check out the website, go to anchor.fm/Lord Blood-Rah. And I'm also, for you listeners in the Bay Area, every third Saturday night of the month, I'm hosting Chiller Diller Theater at the Orinda Theater in Orinda, California, which is, we like to call it your Saturday night monster matinee. So every third Saturday of the month at the Orinda Theater, we present classic horror and science fiction films. In fact, as of this recording, next Saturday, the 18th, December 18th, we'll be showing the Christmas classic Gremlins.
Oh, nice.
It's going to be a fun one. So that's every third Saturday of the month at the Orinda Theater. Of course, my regular TV series, Lord Blood-Rah's Nerve-Wracking Theater, is still going and will be going into season 12 coming up in March, I believe. You can go to lordbloodrah.com to check out a new episode posted every week, plus episodes of the Nerve-Wracking Auditorium and everything else going on in the world of Lord Blood-Rah. Also, if you'd like to support what I'm doing as far as presenting horror and science fiction and all of its various incarnations, you can go to patreon.com/Lord Blood-Rah. And if you sign up there, you can get my exclusive weekly show, Lord Blood-Rah's Cathode Zone, in which I present episodes of classic television horror and science fiction. So I'm presenting classic horror and science fiction movies, television episodes, and radio episodes in various formats that I'm doing. And I'm hoping to have a comic book available soon. Oh. I've started writing a couple of stories, and I'm hoping to get that going at some point. So stay tuned for that. But again, please check out lordbloodrah.com for all that information.
That will be cool.
And then he will also have a cookbook coming out.
I'm working on a cookbook. I'm working on a chip that you can implant that will actually beam thoughts directly from my brain to yours. That'll be coming in 2032.
You and the Department of Defense.
Shh, I'm not supposed to say anything about that.
Well, folks, this draws another Planet 8 to a close. I want to thank you guys for all your support. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Make sure you check out Lord Blood-Rah. A lot of good stuff coming out. And until next time, stay safe. Peace out.
On that note, this will conclude this transmission from Planet 8. We would like to thank all of our intergalactic audience for listening. Be sure to head on over to our website at www.planet8podcast.com, where you can get more information on this episode's topic.
For more conversation, find us on Twitter at Planet8Cast.
Or on Facebook at facebook.com/Planet8Podcast.
We want to thank you guys for tuning in each and every episode. We look forward to your input and opinions. Until next time, this is Planet 8 signing off. End transmission.
By George, he's got it. It is the end.
'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mamma in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap, when out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday to objects below. When what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away, dash away, dash away all. Morris, you know I'm really a fan of yours.
That's very kind of you indeed, Vincent. Thank you.
You know, I saw one of your pictures last night.
Did you really?
Yes.
What a coincidence. I saw you the night before.
Really? Tell me, was that your last picture?
I hope not. The two of us. No boogeyman is greater than the two of us. The people scream about the team of Karloff and Price, although we're as nice as can be. My buddy and me. There's just the two of us,
and we'll be always traveling on.
The two of us. There's lots of gore in pictures for the two of us.
He used to shine as Frankenstein, and I was the fly.
They forced us to die every time to pay for the crime.
They killed the two of us, but we'll be always traveling on. And late in the evening we come out and play.
A couple of monsters on their merry way.
We go to the graveyard for a corpse or two. So treat us kind or you may find the next one is you.
At the knuckles. See if you can stop him, Mr. Karloff. You take on, Junior.
Oh, no, take a crack at it, Dancy. As I said, it's Vincent Price, and I wish you all a good night. That's all from me.